Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ika Vat. The world registered its hottest day ever recorded on July 22nd, highlighting the challenges of climate change. But in the Arctic, which scientists warn could be ice-free in summer as early as the 2030s, climate change is opening up new possibilities and with it, security challenges. Arctic shipping routes, once simply pipe dreams, are now much closer to reality. What would the implications of China's polar Silk Route have on existing trade routes and on the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait? And what does Chinese and Russian cooperation in the Arctic mean for the transatlantic security alliance NATO, which all but one surrounds the Arctic Circle following the accession of Sweden and Finland? With us to discuss this are Liu Fu-kuo, National Chengchi University Institute of International Relations Research Fellow, and Chenlung Kuo, United Daily Newspaper Deputy Editor-in-Chief. Very warm welcome to you both on the show today. At the end of July, the U.S. Department of Defense released its 2024 Arctic strategy, the first since 2019. This is Kathleen Hicks, U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense, at its launch.
The Arctic region of the United States is critical to the defense of our homeland, the protection of U.S. national sovereignty, and the preservation of our defense treaty commitments. It's home to significant defense infrastructure important for homeland defense and projecting global power. Radars and sensors in Alaska detect threats to the homeland, and Alaska's strategic location places it at the crossroads between the Indo-Pacific and Europe.
Beijing and Moscow have partnered to develop Russia's Northern Sea Route, a route they are increasingly using to transport Chinese purchases of Russian energy following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. The 3,500-mile route forms one of the Kremlin's economic priority projects, designed to cement Russian influence in the Arctic. In early 2024, NATO held its Nordic response exercises involving about 50 vessels, 110 aircraft and 20,000 personnel from 14 countries. Russia has held an increasing number of military exercises in the region, and joint China-Russia patrols have also increased the number of incursions within Alaska's exclusive economic zone. This has included joint bombers on July 24th and 25th over the Chengchi and Bering Seas. Professor Liu, let me come to you first. So let's deal with the military implications first. Why, is Washington so concerned about Moscow and Beijing?
Everyone knows since the beginning of Ukraine war, China obviously plays a more significant role supporting Russia. And of course, this is a part of Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, which is called the Polar Silk Road. China is bringing in technology as well as infrastructure capability, helping Russia to pump up their utility of all those northern sea routes, which currently the infrastructure is not really up to the level required for opening up the sea road.
So is it something to do with the proximity? If Russia wanted to send missiles, to hit continental, say, the US, then yes, is the North Pole the quickest route?
Yes, of course. Over the last decade or so, Russia has beefed up its investment in the Arctic region, deployed more military facilities and also weaponry system, which, as you just pointed out quite rightly, it is much shorter distance, hitting Canada and the United States. So for long, especially under the previous two presidents, the United States has not really done much in the Arctic region.
Chenlung, is it also that the ice, when it was frozen, effectively formed a barrier, protective barrier, but with the melting of the ice, these countries, these six countries around the Arctic Circle, become a lot more exposed?
Right. I think this is exactly what everyone is watching these days. That Arctic is warming more than 3 times faster than the rest of the world. So we are seeing that a lot of area used to be in the Arctic Circle cannot be used economically or militarily. Now it can be fully utilized in that area. You just mentioned that if we see the map, not in the usual way, but we see it from top of the globe, we can see that there's a very much proximity between Russia, China, and also Alaska and Canada. So just suppose if either side should fire a missile, it can reach the other side, the target, very, very easily. I think now China is seeing the U.S. as its top enemy. So that is the reason why there's more and more joint military exercise between Beijing and Moscow these days, not only on the naval joint military exercise, but also on the joint patrol in terms of Air Force. And I'm thinking that this had not happened yet. But I'm thinking maybe the NOAD, the Joint Military Command formed by the U.S. and Canada to alert the missile attack in North America, that may form between China and Russia one day with their joint satellite reconnaissance and also with their joint interception missiles.
Chenlung mentioned satellite capabilities of Russia and China together. Professor Liu, what is it that the Arctic strategy for the US, what is it urging the government to build up there?
Of course, this is not just purely military, but also natural resources inside the Arctic Circle up to this moment has not been openly and legally open to everyone to be shared. But among the 8 members of Arctic Council, they have a common understanding. Before human beings' technology would be able to manage such a difficult situation inside the Arctic, nobody would be allowed to freely, openly to explore all those natural resources. So I would guess there are several fronts. Number one, military concern for the United States. Second one is natural resources, including biological and also non-biological resources. Currently,
oil and gas, is that?
Yes, of course. And also living environment which affected by climate change. So there are a number of original people living inside Arctic Circle. Their livelihood has been seriously affected by climate change. So definitely those countries would have to protect their interests. So these are 3 dimensions, and also including another one, transportation, northern sea route or northwest sea route from the Canadian side. So this would also carry lots of strategic meaning. And I look into this latest Arctic report by the US government. It shows that this is very important. They want to make sure this is a peaceful and stabilized region, looking into these 4 dimensions in particular.
Professor Liu mentioned their shipping lanes and the strategic importance of that, and how the US wants to ensure that this, is a safe and stable and secure environment. Russia is hoping to increase Chinese transit via the Northern Sea route from a record 35 million tons in 2023 to 50 million tons by 2030. This will require the construction of new Arctic vessels and the development of ports and logistics centers. The route runs along the Russian Arctic coast, extending from the Kara Sea to the Bering Strait in the Far East. Now, Moscow intends to halve the journey between Europe and Far Eastern ports compared to the Suez Canal route. So let's discuss the full implications of opening up this polar silk route, or operationalizing the Northern Sea route, Russia's. What implications would it have on the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea?
The so-called Northern Sea Road, but 2 or 3 centuries ago, it was called the Northwest Passage. For the global goods, that if you can find an easy and shortest road going from Asia to Europe, that would be good for everyone. But unfortunately, there's a strategic and military implication nowadays. I think why the Russia have been having such a cooperation with China these days is especially its own economic goods, especially on oil and gas. For China, the most vulnerable for them is that all the energy supply would have to go through the Red Sea and have to go through a Malacca Strait and go to the South China Sea and then come to China. So if they can find an alternative way, nowadays they try to ship their oil and gas through the pipe from Russia these days. But if they can find, by building a pipe, it's very expensive and costly to have the shipment. If they can find an easy way to ship their energy through ships and tankers, they can go through the so-called Northern Sea Road. That would be very beneficial, not only economically for China, but also in terms of energy security. That's another major concern for China these days.
Okay, but Professor Liu, to the point about the impact on Taiwan Strait and South China Sea, what I really want to ask is, would fewer cargo transits in the South China Sea, in the Taiwan Strait, would that reduce the global importance of, say, Taiwan or the Philippines, basically take away those reasons that are currently compelling the global community to support peace and stability, to take an interest in Taiwan and the Philippines?
Yes, you are right to the point, because before we come to this question, actually we just look our neighbors, Singapore. Among 13 observers of the Arctic Council, Singapore happens to be one of the observers. And just look into some of the people confused. How come this tropical state becomes observer of the Arctic Council? Because exactly Singaporean policy look much forward into the future, because Singapore is one of the shipping hubs in the Western Pacific. So they are concerning, what if this Arctic route can become utilized and effective? Of course, it will reduce dramatic commercial shipping from Europe to East Asia. And currently, looking into this strategic picture, it takes 35 days from Amsterdam, passing through the Arctic Northern Sea Road to Dalian, China. But if it goes on this traditional line into Mediterranean, Suez Canal, Indian Ocean, South China Sea, it takes 48 days. So basically, strategically, Singaporean government is concerning for the future.
Okay, Chenlung, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, I think nowadays the global shipping industry have been very concerned about certain choke point, especially in Suez Canal and also Panama Canal. They are costly, and sometimes they have to have a lot of delay. As you know, that one of the evergreen ships have been stuck in Suez Canal that had stopped the global shipping for a long time. And by creating a shipping road that is crossing the Arctic Circle, that is a great benefit for a lot of shipping companies. Hence, I think we in Taiwan have to be monitoring this kind of situation very closely. One of the implications is that if there's going to be less shipment going through the Taiwan Strait or any shipping line close to Taiwan, would that reduce some of the strategic importance of Taiwan in a sense that would make Taiwan become less relevant in the global security? I think that is the concern that we want to address, why we are talking about this today.
Let me ask a follow-up question then. So we agree that is an issue that could become a reality as the ice continues to melt. How about looking at it from the point of a Taiwan contingency? So actually during possible war, how reliant is China on the Indian Ocean for shipping, and therefore how vulnerable does that make it?
I just have suggested in China, among the strategic circle, there is a concern about the Malacca dilemma, meaning that China's energy security have been heavily dependent on the shipping line all the way from the Red Sea to their eastern coast.
I think you talked about incidents that is out of people's control. So, for example, the Ever Given being stuck there.
Right.
But what would you say is Beijing's concern is a little bit more strategic, isn't it? That
their concern is that if there's a warlike scenario happening and their tankers may be stopped before they can reach China's ports.
How would they get stuck?
They would be stuck in, for instance, in the Strait of Malacca by the foreign fleet, or they will be under the quarantine by other foreign governments. So that is the reason why China wants to build up relations with Myanmar and try to build a pipe, go all the way through Yunnan because of that concern. And China wants to build a string of pearls of ports along this sea line of communication in order to better protect their shipment. That is all in the package. So I think now they are thinking about maybe we can have our energy through the Arctic Circle, and that is a more safer way for their energy security.
Okay, now let's take a look at the Arctic region with a map. We can see the US, Canada, Russia, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, and Norway, the 8 members of the Arctic Council. In contrast, China is nearly 3,000 kilometers away from the Arctic Circle, although I think from the nearest point it might be half that distance, but refers to itself as a near-Arctic state. Now, earlier I spoke to Arctic expert Liselotte Odgaard from Hudson Institute about China's interest in the region. Take a look.
A challenge to NATO countries, including the US in the Arctic, that will take the heat of some of the pressure China is under close at home. So of course, it's bad news for the other countries in East Asia, Taiwan and others, if China succeeds in doing that, because they have an interest in keeping the US, Europe, Japan, Australia, and others close to them and to help them counter an increasingly assertive China in the Asian theater.
Professor Liu, let me come to you. What did you make of that idea of China not necessarily wanting to have its own military presence, at least for now, in the Arctic, but is very happy to bolster the capabilities of Russia so that it can effectively tie up the resources of NATO and keep NATO away from the Indo-Pacific or the Taiwan Strait?
Right. I think this question has become critically important for global strategic community looking into the collaboration between China and Russia. As I can look into this cooperation, basically in the short term, because Russia needs to export energy from the Arctic region, so they need to immediately upgrade their facility infrastructure in order to export, so Russia would be able to sell some of the energy to India as well as China to continue the war in Ukraine. But putting into a longer term, China for now also gets much inexpensive energy from Russia. But in the longer run, Chenlung just mentioned, China is also trying to gradually dilute the importance of Indian Ocean exporting energy, because Malacca dilemma is so difficult for China to overcome. The US, together with India and also ASEAN country, guarding against this narrow waterway. So basically, China is looking much in the long term. So develop this idea of a polar Silk Road combining with Russia. This is the time that Russia desperately needs China to support, not just technology, capital, as well as infrastructure support. So this would lift up this collaboration, and both countries are now prepared to shape the order inside. This is also another concern for the rest of 7 members in the Arctic Council.
You said shape the order.
Yes, regional order, because exactly every one of the country send their ship, cargo ship, passing through the Arctic Sea. Lately, mostly relied on Russian support, because after all, the Arctic is not a normal region. It would be very risky without Russian support. So Russia can really take advantage of such an offer, charge more taxes when they pass through the Arctic. So that is exactly they are doing. So in the longer term, Russia and China can combine together, gradually shape up this regional order inside the Arctic. But of course, in the larger strategic picture, the US, European country are worrying whether gradually this group of a country will come up and shape up their own international order.
Chenlung, you wanted to?
I want to add is that now there's 8 countries in the Arctic Council, but China is desperately want to join in and have its own voice. So early in May this year, Norway had a piece of private property for sale. It's a huge amount size to have 15,000 acres. And it had, the owner is charging like 300 million pounds for that. And China is one of the earnest bidder for that piece of land. But that was blocked at the last minute by the Norway government. And this is not the first attempt. In 2014, another piece of land had been also bidded by China. And those land is just around the Arctic Circle. And those are the lands that China want to have a claim on its say in the Arctic affairs.
So are you saying that they wanted to own territory and then become one of those proper full Arctic members?
Right. And now China is also observer of the Arctic Council, just like Singapore, right?
Okay. I just want to get in one last question. The US, Canada and Finland have announced a consortium to build a world-class polar icebreaker fleet, a move described as a strategic imperative to help project power into the region. The US currently has only 2 icebreaker ships nearing the end of their lives. Compare that to Russia's more than 40. The initiative, called the Icebreaker Collaboration Effort, or ICE Pact, aims to deliver 70 to 90 icebreakers over the next decade. Professor Liu, so what will that new fleet enable the US to do?
This initiative, ICE Pact initiative, would take at least a decade also. It is not easy because looking into strategic competition inside the Arctic, icebreaker matters a lot. So Russia currently dominates this platform. They have 40, as you mentioned, and they are building in another, before a decade, they can aid on another 13 to 15 currently. So the United States is really lagging behind. And according to this pact, ICE Pact, 3 countries joined together, they are going to build 70 to 90 icebreaker, because icebreaker is not easy, mostly nuclear powered. So generated this icebreaker, so the more they can get, the better position they can manage this competition inside the Arctic. So currently, according to the information, China already has one. They are building the new one with this nuclear power generated icebreaker. So China is also catching up fast in this competition. Basically, looking into the future, that is the reason why 3 countries would have to join as a consortium, develop jointly. Looking into the future, 7 countries may be able to share this icebreaker capability, competing with Russia. But it takes, as I mentioned, more than a decade. So for now, Russia and China can still dominate a lot of activities.
Yeah, Chenlung, is the feeling very much that the US is very much behind and that catching up would be an uphill battle?
Right, just like Fu-kuo has said, China's own design of nuclear power icebreaker is going to be operational later this year. So they have acquired 3 of the foreign-made and then made their own modification. Why the icebreaker is so important is that in order to do any research or you want to clear up the ice for the shipment to go on, they have to go through the icebreaker. So I think China has already tried to dip their toe in this water.
Okay, we're going to have to end it there. Thank you so much, Liu Fu-kuo and Chenlung Kuo, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.
We bring you stories from Taiwan.
Every day of the week.
Our reporters travel the nation.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
News from here in Taiwan and around the world.
What's Up Taiwan on Taiwan Plus.
At Connected, we believe in the power of dialogue. It's not just about the headlines, it's about finding common ground. Join the conversation.
Connected with Divya Gopalan on Taiwan Plus.